Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's great to be in Copenhagen again. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the role and the value of the small and the mid-sized contemporary art institution. And since approximately 5 years back, I'm working as a director of Marabouparken Konsthall, which is a contemporary art institution which is situated in the city of Sundbyberg, which is approximately 20 minutes away from the city center of Stockholm. But I'm not going to talk specifically about my institutions, but you're very welcome to come and visit. It's an excellent one. But I wanted instead to tell you a little bit about that our institution is part of a network called Klister. It was initiated in 2011, and it consists of 24 small and mid-sized contemporary art institutions from all over Sweden, from Luleå up in the north down to Malmö in the south. And what sets us apart from the bigger institutions is that we are more oriented towards society, and we are local players with programs that aims to be meaningful and relevant in the areas that we work. We're also part of a local infrastructure, but we also have the ambition to be of relevance nationally as well as globally. But we are far from cut from the same piece of cloth. So on the contrary, we vary widely in so many ways, in stories of origin, in organization, artistic interest and content, resources and methods. But several of us, and I'm sure it's also true for institutions here in Denmark and the rest of Scandinavia, and I don't know, maybe even in the rest of the world, we face the same challenges. It's high rents, small staffs, nagging politicians, projectification, bureaucratification, cutbacks in state and private fundings, which I just heard is very true for Denmark since a few days back. And demands for an ever-increasing number of visitors. Ignorant civil servants and politicians, insufficient marketing, and the list could go on. And with what was happening in other parts in Europe, especially in Britain and Holland a few years back, with severe cutbacks in their cultural budgets. And at the same time, some of the institutions in Sweden were threatened to close down. We decided to form this network to give support to each other and to reflect upon what we could do together and find strategies for how we could make a stronger case for ourselves. But being self-critical, we suspected that one of the reasons for the uncertainty among politicians and officials and other decision makers regarding the functions that galleries fulfill and the values they create were that we're not very good in communicating what we actually do, other than a fairly tight inner circle. So let me just ask you, are there any politicians here today? Any other bureaucrats that works within the cultural field? So I rest my case.
It's not how we see ourselves.
But the first thing the network did was to commission a report that would shed light on these issues, on the many things that we actually do, and what role we have or what role we maybe should have in society. And we wanted also the report to look at new ways of thinking when it comes to evaluating our practices. And with this report as a tool, we had the means to target local politicians and bureaucrats with both public and closed discussions about the significance and value of our institutions, both in terms of democratic and financial perspectives. And this is an ongoing work that we do, and we take very small baby steps, but important steps, however. The report No Exceptions, which is the title, is written by Mikael Löfgren and was first released in 2014 as a PDF, and it has recently come out in paperback. It has the undertitle Value Creation in Small and Mid-sized Galleries of Contemporary Art. And this is a photo from Gothenburg. It shows the factory where they make the Volvo cars. And this is another photo from Gothenburg, but this shows the contemporary art institution Röda Sten. It is housed in a building that was earlier a facility for heating coal, providing the city with energy. And it still does provide the city with energy, but in another way, if you know what I mean. Both the Volvo factory and the art institutions are important for Gothenburg, but in different ways. They create different values. So what are the values of small and mid-sized contemporary art institutions? What are we good at and what are we good for? And I listed some things that the reports put forward. So small and mid-sized art institutions are part of and contribute to a complex and overlapping ecosystem. The art world, the local society, the education system, the public sphere, and research. And thanks to our relatively small size, we can provide an increasingly crucial free zone for experimentation and discussion, which is so important today. And where topics like economics and democracy and the public are all central. Collaborations with schools and higher education, civil society, work life play a central role. And equally central is the ambition to function as a public meeting space for the local communities. And the smaller institutions, they also often invest in younger, less established artists and in new art forms. And therefore we are a really important production and distribution channel for the bigger institutions, the bigger museums, as well as for coming generation of artists and for art audiences. The working locally often means with working with a smaller audience, but it can have bigger impact on those that actually come, and bigger impact for people in the long run. So in this era when social and political and economical changes occurs, when underfunding, bureaucracy, and the sometimes overly cautious attitude of politicians, they can erode anyone's self-confidence, giving in to the catering of needs of private sponsors and political, very short-sighted ideas. But I would argue that we do an astonishing amount of important work. And together with artists, of course, we have to create values that we have an abundant reasons to hold our heads high for. So how does one navigate so not to have to adapt to systems that we don't agree with? Well, there are more ways than one, but an important one must be to try and create a greater understanding of the role we are playing. And this requires an understanding of the interaction between our activities, contemporary art, and the surrounding community. And the value of culture cannot be expressed only with statistics. Audience numbers, they give a very poor picture of how culture enriches us. And what is most important is actually to try and develop a language, a terminology that is capable of articulating the many dimensions that, and functions that art and culture have. But I think the greatest challenge of all lies in getting politicians to get informed, interested and involved, and to begin to talk about these intrinsic values of the arts with each other and also with their citizens. But this can only happen by looking beyond quantifying results and by taking qualitative questions seriously. But I wanted to close telling you about the work of an artist and a practice that we as workers in the cultural field perhaps could be inspired by, identify with and relate to. And it's a woman that very much took matters into her own hands. And it's the 26-year-old American artist Miriam Bäckström. And I know we have a fan here in the audience, Peter Bunde, the artist. And here is part of a manifesto she wrote in 1969. And she said that she wanted to become an artist to be free, to lead the same unlimited life as her male heroes, Jackson Pollock, Marcel Duchamp and Mark Rothko. And Pollock because of his bodily freedom, and Duchamp because he could name things art. And Rothko because she felt that he had the freedom to move from one dimension into another. But when Miriam started a family, became a wife and a mother, she realized that neither Pollock, Duchamp or Rothko cleaned, cooked or changed diapers. So she no longer felt that she fit the image of an artist. And people also stopped asking her what she was up to, what she was doing. In this new situation, she realized that she was now one of these people who work with the least valued chores in the everyday routines of society. Maintenance. Maintaining a home, a family, an institution, and the streets. Work that allows each one of us to walk to our jobs the next day, the care in which all of the rest of society rests upon. But Euclid, she got kind of a revelation. You know, as an artist, she had the power to elevate all of this maintenance work and call it art. So the following years, she made performances, carrying out everyday maintenance work in the home, in the art institutions, and out in the streets. And she called them maintenance artworks. And she made this in order to highlight and question how different value systems apply to different sorts of labor, questioning our view on maintenance work and on the people performing it. In 1979, Miriam got a call from the head of the New York City's Department of Sanitation, asking her if she wanted to come and work with them and see if she could raise consciousness of their working situation. She of course accepted, and she ended up as their first and only artist in residence, a residence she still holds today. Using its facilities and its staff as collaborators in an 11-month-long performance called Touch Sanitation, where she met over 8,500 sanitary workers, shaking hands with each of them and saying, "Thank you for keeping New York City alive." And just for the record, it took 40 years before Miriam got her first solo exhibition. And it did not happen in any of the major art museums or institutions. Not even in New York, where she lives and works for the most of the time, but in a smaller, mid-sized institution in Austria, in the Kunstverein Graz. So what Miriam saw was a coalition between the ancient maintenance class of women and all the other people in the world doing maintenance work. And she thought that, you know, if they could make a common cause, they could also reorder everything. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.